Good morning. It is our privilege to welcome you to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers New Orleans District inaugural 2020 Virtual Industry Day. My name is Renee Elizabeth Davis, and I am the Command's Executive Assistant and MC for today's event. Before we get started, I will go over a few administrative items to help today run as smoothly as possible. Normally, our industry days are held in person. However, due to the continued COVID-19 pandemic, our event is being conducted in a significantly different manner than in previous years, and we are reaching out to you today virtually. It is our hope that this enables wider participation for our industry partners, ensures the safety of every person involved, safeguards applicable Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, state and local health guidelines, social distancing practice, and restrictions on public gatherings. We are excited, and we have invited you to this meeting to give you a better understanding of the projects we are working and to identify future contract opportunities available to you. There is a lot to cover today, so there will not be an open forum for questions and answers during the event. However, if you have questions regarding any of the projects presented that you would like answered, please submit them via email to our contract specialists, Karen Hargrave and Bianca M. James Gaddison. Their contact information can be found on a beta.sam.gov special notice titled Virtual Industry Day 2020 with the Contracting Information section. All questions submitted to the Contracting Division prior to Thursday, August 13th will be answered and posted back to this notice no later than Thursday, August 27th. Next, we will hear opening remarks from our district commander, Colonel Stephen Murphy. Following the colonel, contracting will provide a brief overview of the government contracting process with tips on how to be successful. To recap, various divisions within the district will present their forecasted contract opportunities to you. The Deputy of Small Business Programs will discuss how to get started doing business with the federal government. And at the conclusion of the event, Colonel Murphy will provide some closing remarks. Let's begin.
So good morning and welcome to our first virtual industry day. We're glad you could join us. This really is a different venue than I think many of us have ever experienced before. Some of you might remember that back in April, we had our industry day planned. And actually it was going to be a new venue with guidance from our commanding general then, General Toy. And he changed the name from Industry Day to Business Opportunities Open House. And the intent was he really wanted the Corps to engage industry, to really build on the partnerships that make projects successful. And it was changing that. I was reducing the briefings, but really the major change to the way we were going to host that Business Opportunity Open House was interaction with you, with our senior leaders and our subject matter experts. Well, then COVID-19 hit and everything has changed. And really, this is the next best thing. And I wanted to say thank you to many of you. The whole reason that we're doing this virtually right now is input we've received from you on, hey, what are the opportunities available to the Corps right now in lieu of the April Industry Day having been canceled because of COVID-19. So I really wanted to go through just a few key points, welcome you here this morning, and just say that we look forward to the partnerships and we need those partnerships to execute what is a massive program. And really, that's my first point to share with you today, is that even though the economy right now with COVID-19 and everything going on is struggling, I know that there are stories of rebounding, but here in the New Orleans district and really across the Corps, our programs are healthier than they've been in a while. And we've had some very healthy programs. Right now, the New Orleans district has one of the largest civil works programs in the entire Corps of Engineers. So if you're looking to do business, in the New Orleans and the South Louisiana, you're in a very good place. And just to give you an example, so in 2017, we had a $300 million contract obligations for our program. It almost doubled the next year to 540 million in 2018. Last year, we obligated 700 million. And my point is this year we're looking at 1.1 billion in obligations. There are just a lot of opportunities. And if you can see the agenda screen, you remember the agenda screen, that's our intent today, is really go down and just give you a broad brush stroke on what those opportunities are. So the first point is there's a lot of incredible opportunities. I hope you take advantage of them. The second one is there are aggressive goals. So whether you're large industry or small industry, there's opportunities. For small businesses, many of you know that the Corps of Engineers has small business goals that we strive to achieve every year. What you might not know is that of all the divisions in the Corps of Engineers, so the general officer level headquarters, that the Mississippi Valley Division, our higher headquarters, has the most aggressive, the largest by percentage goals in all of the Corps of Engineers. So there's a lot of opportunity, big or small business, but if you're a small business, you have some great opportunities, especially here in South Louisiana, but really I'd say in any of my sister districts, Vicksburg, Memphis, or on up the river. And the last thing I'll say is we run on relationships and communication. And I know that doing business with the federal government is not always easy. My dad was a small business owner, and I remember he did a contract with the federal government, and he said it'll be my first and my last contract with the federal government. So what makes relationships successful is communication. And I specifically ask that we put points of contact on the screen so that as we brief, we're going to be doing this broad brush, that you send your question in so we can respond to those. And hopefully this presents opportunities for both the New Orleans District and the Corps of Engineers, as well as those of you on the screen. But in that vein, with good relationships requiring good communication, I think it's important to say, and I'll close with this, that COVID-19 has certainly impacted the Corps of Engineers and the New Orleans District. And it's amazing to see how the district has responded, but it's important for you to know that the district is almost in an entirely telework footing for a lot of the folks that are working these projects, the project managers, the engineers. So I've had many requests since COVID started. Hey, can we come in? Can we meet? Everything we're doing right now, for the most part, is virtual. So a lot of the communications we're doing is just like this, over the computer, over the phone. But meeting face to face right now, just with federal, state, and DoD restrictions, we're limiting that. So I'd ask in your communication, you can just expect that it'll be email, phone, and virtually. But we're excited you're here. I hope this is as valuable to you as it has been for us putting it together. Please let us know what your questions are and how it can be better in the future. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Colonel. Next up, contracting.
Good morning and welcome to our first ever virtual Industry Day. Hi, I'm Margaret Main and I am the Chief of the Projects East Branch, and today I will be covering an overview of our contracting process. Whether you're new to working with the federal government or you're an old timer, I think you'll find something valuable in our overview today. How to do business with the government. First of all, you need to register with SAM. SAM stands for System of Award Management, and this is where you get your CAGE code. It is free to register. For those of you who already have a CAGE code, I'd like to let you know that to update or renew your registration early. We've seen lags in updating up to 2 months, And we can't make an award without a valid cage code. So I'd like to let those of you who already work with us know to, if you're looking at bidding on an offer, as you're following those announcements, please check your cage code, make sure that it's up to date, or if you know that it's going to be expiring before the award, please go ahead and initiate that process now to make sure that your SAM cage code is up to date. Next slide. How do you find business opportunities with USACE? First of all, you're doing it right now. You're attending our virtual business industry day. Second, you can look at Beta SAM. Beta SAM has replaced FedBizOps as the online marketplace for the federal business opportunities, and it's free to use. However, as the name states, it's a beta site, so it is currently under development by the GSA. Please take some time to familiar yourself with its features. You can search for and follow opportunities, but as it's still being developed, it may not have all of the functionality that you are accustomed to using on FedBizOps. You can still follow opportunities, and it's important to do so. Next slide. So, the contracting process from the beginning. As a business, this is where it starts for you. It's with our pre-solicitation notice or sources sought. These can be used for a multitude of purposes. We can use them to conduct market research, ask for industry comments, or provide a notice that a solicitation is planned. This is your opportunity to speak up and let us know what your capabilities are or provide professional input. Market research allows us to set aside opportunities for small business. We need to make sure that we have enough small businesses out there to compete. So if we ask you to provide information on your capabilities, please respond to us because we're trying to set this aside for a small business. If we ask for industry comments, it's because we're not an expert in your field and we need your input. We try to align our business practices with what industry does, but we can't know every industry. So please provide us your professional input. For most requirements, a pre-solicitation notice must be published a minimum of 15 calendar days before the solicitation may be published. However, it can be months or even years depending on the scope of the project until that solicitation is actually published. This gives you time and us time to work on those requirements. It allows us to have a dialogue before we put that solicitation out. Next slide. Solicitations. Most solicitations are advertised for a minimum of 30 days. They can be longer. The more complex projects that we work on, the longer that solicitation time will be. We also amend solicitations. These are changes that we're making to the solicitation. Often this is the result of questions submitted by contractors. Amendments often answer questions, clarify work to be performed, or correct errors in the solicitation. Amendments also may extend the due date of the offer. You must acknowledge each amendment when submitting your offer to confirm that you are offering on the most recent version of the work to be performed. Tracking an opportunity on Beta SAM is imperative to receive those notices of amendments. Next slide. There are 3 types of solicitations. A request for quote, or RFQ, is used for quoting on pricing. This solicitation type is most often used when the estimated value of the government's need is less than $250,000, which is the simplified acquisition threshold, or when it's a commercial supply and service up to $7 million. In emergencies, a solicitation may be an email or a phone call. A purchase order is issued from a quote, and it's not binding until the vendor begins performance or signs a contract. You often, if you've worked with us in the past, especially when we're in the middle of flood fight, you may have received a phone call from a contracting officer. We did this last year when we had all of the high river that extended for a long time. We've made some phone calls looking for rock to open a spillway. We conducted negotiations over the phone. Those requests for quotes give us that flexibility to respond. A request for proposal is used to communicate the government's required to prospective contractors and solicit proposals. These are much more formal procurements. An RFP will describe the government's requirements and anticipated terms and conditions, information required, and the factors that will be used to evaluate the proposal. Depending on the complexity of the project, it may be used with construction. The basis of award is either lowest price technically acceptable or trade-off, which is also known as best value. An invitation for bid, or IFB, is often referred to as a sealed bid. These are generally used for construction contracts. Typically, there will not be any discussions or negotiations following the bid opening. While the price is the key evaluation factor, the lowest bidder does not automatically win the contract. And I'm going to repeat that. The lowest bidder does not automatically win the contract. We check for bid responsiveness and the firm's responsibility. We also compare the bids against our own internal estimate to see if it's within an awardable range. So when you go to our virtual bid openings, you will hear sometimes one of our contract specialists say the apparent winner is, because there's a lot of other evaluations that have to be done before we can actually announce who the winner is. Next slide. Things to consider before submitting a bid or proposal. So, did you review the statement of work or performance work statement, which provides a list of required deliverables or outcomes and quality standards? Did you look at the regulations that were cited in the solicitation? Did you know where the place of performance is? It may not be in New Orleans proper. It might be out in Baton Rouge or anywhere within our footprint of our district. And did you look at the performance period or delivery schedule or completion date? These are what we expect those work to be done by. And can you meet those? Also, did you consider teaming with others? Sometimes the projects are larger projects and you can't necessarily do it by yourself, but you may go into a teaming relationship with either another firm that is equal with you or into a subcontracting relationship. Did you look at the key experience or skills required of contractor personnel? This would be more often in a evaluated procurement, like best value or an LPTA, where we're actually taking a look at the key experience of those contractor personnel. If you're in an RFP environment where you're listing your past performance, did you look at not only the past performance of your firm, but the individuals within your firm? Did you look at whether it's personal or non-personal services? If it's a personal service, then the government will be directing your personnel. Non-personal services means that you're going to have to put in management controls in order to manage your personnel performing on that contract. All service contracts, including architect and engineering contracts, require the use of a quality assurance surveillance plan, and that will be used to measure your performance. Did you review your QASP in the solicitation? Next slide. So the third step is evaluation. So on the left, you'll see the evaluation of IFBs. We're going to evaluate your offer for responsiveness. Did you bid on everything that we asked you to? Also, did you throw in something that we didn't ask for? So that is the first thing we're going to look at. The second thing is we're going to evaluate the pricing for uneven pricing, errors, and we're going to do a realism analysis. We're going to evaluate responsibility. We're going to check databases such as CPARS. If you've worked for the government before, you should have a CPARS rating. We're going to check FAPIS, which is another database. And if we're not familiar with your firm, we may order a Duns and Bradstreet report to see, a financial wellness check before we offer you a contract. We're going to evaluate your subcontracting plan if you're a large business and the competition was unrestricted. And we're going to take a look at your bonds. Common mistakes with IFBs is submitting an incomplete or late submission. If that is the case, your bid will not be considered. Also, a problem is when you do not understand the solicitation and the governing regulations. That leads often to unrealistic pricing, or you have an error in submission. I'd like to give you just a little brief example of this. While I was in Germany, we had a requirement for the demolition of a waste treatment facility. We offered a site visit, and several of the contractors went out. Once we opened bid, the contractor with the lowest bid had not gone to the site visit, and he was 1/3 lower than all of the other bidders. In evaluating his proposal, what we noticed is that he did not fully understand the solicitation and the governing regulations. In Germany, all soil that would be excavated had to be incinerated because it was a waste treatment facility. We do a bid verification where we call people or send them letters and say, hey, did you understand that this required that? Because your bids are binding. At that point, he could not verify his bid, and we went to the next lowest bidder. So not fully understanding the solicitation or the governing regulations leads to unrealistic pricings, and that's what we check for, because we don't want anybody to get into a position where they can't perform the work because they didn't understand it. So in evaluating RFPs, those are those proposals. We're going to be evaluating more things. We're going to be evaluating technical, past performance, small business participation, as well as price. We're going to be evaluating responsiveness as well. All of those things that are over in the evaluation of IFBs. We're going to be checking that responsibility. We're going to be looking at the uneven pricing, errors and realism. And then we're going to rate them, the non-priced factors. In an LPTA, we're going to rate them as acceptable or unacceptable. In a trade-off environment, we're going to be giving them ratings of outstanding, good, acceptable, marginal, or unsatisfactory. Common mistakes. Everything that's listed in the left-hand column under IFB and failure to address evaluation factors. What did we ask you for? Did you answer what we've asked you for? Not providing specificity or focus. If we've asked you to do it, if you give us a generalized answer rather than a focused answer, and then not understanding the trade-off considerations. An example is, often we will say, this is our most important factor, and then you spend all your time on something that's less important, and you don't give service to the ones that were most important to us. Next slide. Award. On an RFQ, generally we make it to that responsible vendor with a quote that is technically acceptable with the lowest price. But in emergencies, what we may be focusing on, what may be in the best interests of the government, may be the speed of delivery or the quantity available from one supplier. So especially in emergency situations, when we had high water, we were working on getting rock so that we could open one of the spillways, being able to deliver because the Mississippi River had been closed, so we couldn't get supplies down from our usual suppliers. The speed of the delivery, would they be in place at the time that we needed to open up the spillway? And the quantity available from one supplier. We could do 3 contracts with all different suppliers, but maybe not get the best value to the government, where we could do one contract to one supplier and get the entire quantity available. IFBs, those are made to the responsible bidder who has submitted the lowest price responsive bid. So not only is it the lowest price, but you had to be responsive to all the things that we asked you for, and you have to be found responsible. So that's that check of your, previous past performance. Is your CPARS rating good? Is your Duns and Bradstreet rating good? Then on an RFP, there's 2 different award factors. There's lowest price technically acceptable, where the award is going to be made to a responsible offer with the lowest price and that's technically acceptable. Or we can use a trade-off process where the award is made to the responsible offer with a proposal that provides the best value to the government. That may or may not be the lowest price. So, typically in those, we're looking at solutions to be provided by the contractor. Maybe the best solution is not the lowest price, and yet that would be maybe a better value to us than a less than a different solution that was proposed. Next slide. Lastly, there's contract administration. So once awarded, awards over 250,000 generally have a contracting officer's representative appointed. Under $250,000, a COR or appointed contact will be provided. This COR, which is the contracting officer's representative, is your government contact regarding questions, coordinating performance, as well as the person that's responsible for rating your performance. A COR may not change the terms and conditions of the contract, but may direct you to contact the contracting officer or contact the contracting officer directly on your behalf. So if you have a issue that comes up, you contact your COR. You can also contact the KO, but the KO works in coordination with the COR to come up with a resolution. Okay? A contact may be modified only by the contracting officer, and that's either the procuring contracting officer, the person who awards the contract, or typically in construction contracts, we also have administrative contracting officers who help work through all of those change modifications that often happen on a construction project. The government may issue modifications unilaterally. Typically, those are change orders to exercise options or to make minor administrative changes or to terminate a contract. All other changes are bilateral. They require your consent and signature. Well, I hope you've learned something in our brief overview of the contracting process. If you have any questions, please submit them to either Karen or Bianca, and we'd be happy to answer those questions that you have. Also, later on in our virtual industry day, our Deputy of Small Business will be going more in depth about the beta SAM process and where to find opportunities, and he's a great resource to contact if you have questions as well. Thank you, and that concludes my portion of this presentation. Thank you.
Next, we have the Comeet River Diversion Project.
Good morning. My name is Bobby Duplanche. I'm the Senior Project Manager for the Comeet River Diversion Project. I am tasked with bringing this project to fruition and getting all of the features and contracts constructed so that we do have a functioning project. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the overall project, why it's important, and then we're going to dive into some of the slides and the specific procurements that we're going to be looking into. Next slide. So the overall purpose of the project is to provide flood risk reduction to the residents of East Baton Rouge, Livingston, and Ascension Parish. Historically, the Comeet has been part of the larger Amite River Basin, and there's been a lot of flooding going back in history on this project. Some of the big events were the floods of 1983, and most recently in 2016. That was really the impetus to get this project moving forward. Next slide, please. So looking at this map, I'm going to kind of give an overview of the project here. The goal of the project is simply to divert floodwaters from the Comeet rivers through a 12-mile diversion and ultimately deposit those floodwaters into the Mississippi River. And that will lower the stages on the Comeet and the Amite rivers. Of that 12 miles that the water will travel, 8 of those miles are via an engineered excavated channel. And this is going to be a gravity-fed flow, so there's no pump stations and things like that involved with the project. Looking at the map, there are a bunch of segments that we've broken this into so that the construction contracts are manageable. I'll kind of point you to some of the colors so you understand the features that I'm talking about when I go through the more specific project features. The first one is in purple. We call that channel segment 1. That is on the west side of the project. The next one is in teal. That is channel segment 2. Channel segment 3 is in yellow, and on the easternmost part of the project is channel segment 4. And later in the presentation, I'll give some specifics about what those channels look like and the work that's going to be needed there. In addition, this channel is going to intersect 3 bayous: Bayou Baton Rouge, Cypress Bayou, and White Bayou. On the map, you can see those are in the light purple and pink callouts. At these locations, there'll be drop structures. You can call them rock chutes, basically. They'll be constructed that will deposit flows from those bayous into our channel as well, again, reducing the risk of flooding. In addition to those bayous that we're going to intersect, there's also going to be 4 state highways that we intersect. These are some of the more challenging features of the project. Those four state highways are Highway 61, Highway 964, Highway 19, and Highway 67. And at 2 of these highways, there are also railroads associated with them. At Highway 61 is the Kansas City Southern Railroad, and at Highway 19 is the Go-Go Railroad. These features are kind of shown with those are the orange called out on the map. All the way to the left side of the slide, the westernmost part of the project, that is the Highway 61 construction contract. There's a contract for the McHugh Road Bridge. That one has not been advertised, but the other 4 construction bridges, those have been advertised. Highway 61 is being led by the Army Corps of Engineers, and the other 3 bridges, Highway 964, Highway 19, and Highway 67, are all being led by our partner, Louisiana Department of Transportation. This project will also require the construction of a diversion structure at the point where at the co-meet where the channel is going to meet. If you look all the way on the right side of the slide, the easternmost part of the project, that is called out in green. After the channel segments are all completed, there's also going to be a feature where we're going to snag and clear those 3 bayous that I mentioned earlier, and so that we get better flow into our channel. Finally, the project is going to include a stream improvement around the Brooks Lakes area, and that is shown in the yellow on the westernmost part of the slide, on the left side of the slide. This feature is still in the early design phases, but more to come on that one. Now we're going to go into some of the specifics, next slide, about the different things that we're going to be looking for on those contracts. So we broke the project down into 19 individual construction contracts, 6 of which have been constructed and are ongoing. So I'll point you to COM number 2. That's the one I just mentioned. That is Brooks Lake. Again, early in the design phase, but what it could potentially be is improvements of that bayou, Cooper Bayou, and just kind of a steering wall that's going to divert water after it leaves the Lily Bayou control structure, which is constructed. I failed to mention that the Lily Bayou feature is the only feature of the project that is currently completed right now. COM 3 is channel segment 1 that I showed on the map before. And just to give you some specifics, that is about 1.3 miles long, and it's going to be 280 feet wide with a 50-foot depth, and it's going to be a 15-foot wide bottom of channel. So that's generally going to be about a 1-on-3 slope. This channel feature is going to be lined with riprap. We're looking at possibly R90 stones to prevent erosion in that feature. The next contract is Bayou Baton Rouge. Those that may have been to previous industry days, the design on some of these bayous have changed quite a bit. The original plan for these features was to be a large concrete drop structure to deposit water into the channel. But the team looked at it, we did some engineering on it, and we're going to pivot from this to a more rock chute sort of a design. It's still going to function the same, but it's going to be a more environmentally friendly and cost-effective solution. The chute itself at Bayou Baton Rouge is going to be approximately 1,500 foot long, and the rock size is going to range from about an R90 all the way up to a R3500. So it's going to be quite a array of stone sizes. Com 5 is channel segment 2. It's kind of the same depth of the previous channel segment, but it's going to be about 1 mile long. It's going to be 300-foot wide, 50-foot depth, and about a 15-foot wide channel bottom. Com 6 is the Cypress Bayou rock chute, and that one is going to be about 1,200 foot long. So generally, all of these rock chutes are going to be about the same design. The only thing that's going to differ on them is how far the rock chute is going to extend into before it goes into the channel. So also, as I mentioned before, I'll jump to COM 12. That is the clearing and snagging. We talked about that before with the Bayou Baton Rouge, Cypress Bayou, and White Bayous. That's going to be some work inside of the channel, cutting limbs, cleaning debris from the channel to make sure that those bayous are efficient. COM 15 is channel segment 3. It's going to be about a mile long. And again, 15-foot bottom, about 270-foot wide R90 stones that are going to be placed. Next slide, please. COM 16 is the McHugh Road Bridge. So this one is our anticipated next contract to be advertised. The plans call for McHugh Ridge, a 2-lane bridge supported by a 66-inch drilled shaft that will cross the diversion channel. So the contractor that is selected for this job will also be constructing a portion of the channel as well. COM number 17 is channel segment 4, much like the other channel segments, but this one is about 1.5 miles long. COM number 18 is the White Bayou rock chute. Much like the other rock chutes, this one is about 1,300 foot long. The riprap is going to range in size from an R90 stone all the way up to an R3500 stone. And COM 19, that is the actual diversion structure. That is the feature that is going to make the entire project work. That is going to divert water from the Comeet to the Mississippi River via our channel. So whoever selected for this will be responsible for constructing a concrete structure that would allow the water to go into the channel. The project will include an inflow channel that will guide it, and there's also going to be a portion of the channel all the way up to Highway 67. Highway 67, I'll remind you, is the easternmost bridge associated with the project. COM 20 is channel segment 2B. That's between Highway 964 and Cypress Bayou. This is a smaller segment. This is about 1/2 mile long. And COM number 21 is there's some repairs that need to happen at the Lily Bayou structure. There's some voids that we found under the concrete. So there'll need to be some ground penetrating radar and things like that to correct those voids before the project is functional. So that is a feature that's going to be awarded. Next slide. As you can see from the slides, the timetable for the advertisement is very aggressive, and they're going to be coming up soon. The majority of the schedules are to be advertised in the fourth quarter of 2020 or first quarter 2021. The contracts in this advertisement are early to mid 2021. Next slide. So this one shows the McHugh Road, channel segment 4, White Bayou, and the diversion structure. And these solicitations are going to be mainly fourth quarter 2020, and there's 2 of them in first quarter 2021. You can see the breakout on a slide on when the anticipated solicitation date is for each of those. The goal is to complete this entire project by the end of 2021. So we're looking forward to working with as many people as we possibly can on this one. We know this is a very aggressive schedule, it's very aggressive durations, but we do have full confidence that, you guys partnering with us, we will get this completed. Thank you.
Next up, West Shore Lake Pontchartrain Project.
Good morning. My name is Chris Gilmore, and I'm the Senior Project Manager for the West Shore Lake Pontchartrain Project. This morning, I'm going to give you an overview of the project and a brief description of the various construction contracts that we have planned. Next slide, please. The purpose of the West Shore Lake Pontchartrain project is to provide much-needed flood risk reduction to the residents of St. John the Baptist, Western St. Charles, and St. James parishes. Over 60,000 people live in the three-parish project area and have little to no hurricane risk reduction in place. Additionally, the dominant evacuation route for the New Orleans metropolitan area, Interstate 10, passes through the project area. During Hurricane Isaac in 2012, storm surge flooded approximately 7,000 homes, and the interstate was underwater for several days, slowing emergency response in the region. This is why the West Shore Lake Pontchartrain project is critical to the region. The West Shore Lake Pontchartrain project will consist of the construction of a completely new levee system through the Maurepas Swamp, so no doubt this will be a very challenging construction project. More detailed information about the project can be found on the project website. To find it, just Google West Shore Lake Pontchartrain project. The project website is typically the first link that comes up. For St. John the Baptist and Western St. Charles parishes, the project will consist of approximately 18.5 miles of levee and flood walls, 4 pump stations, 1 marine navigation gate, 9 drainage structures. Each location of the drainage structures will have multiple drainage structures associated with it, 3 roadway floodgates, 2 railroad floodgates, and approximately 35 utility relocations, which typically means pipeline relocations. Next slide. For the St. John the Baptist, for St. James portion of the project, the current project consists of approximately 4.5 miles of ring levee, installation of valves and drainage culverts that pass under Highway 3125 in approximately 145 locations, and the raising or floodproofing of a handful of homes and or businesses in the project area. We're currently estimating that 7 to 9 million cubic yards of levee clay material will be needed for the construction of the levees. We have identified about 3.5 million cubic yards of levee clay material in the Bonnie Care spillway that may be used. For the remaining amount needed, we have been approved to use commercial borrower sources for this clay. As such, we have issued a sources sought to help us identify any available commercial sources of this levee clay material. The sources sought is currently posted on www.betasam.gov. Once on the BetaSam website, all you have to do is search for 2020-WSLP. This will give you all the information you need to become a commercial levee clay source for the West Shore Lake Pontchartrain project. The sources sought closes on November 5th, 2020 to allow you the opportunity to gather the information that is needed to be submitted so that you can be considered as a commercial clay source if you're interested. The West Shore Lake Pontchartrain project has been divided into 14 separate construction contracts. I'll now briefly describe the major features of each of those contracts. West Shore WSLP 101 consists approximately of 1.8 miles of levee. It's a pure earth job. WSLP 102 consists of approximately a mile of levee, about 500 feet of flood wall, and several drainage structures. One thing I want to point out about this reach is that the flood wall will actually be constructed under the elevated portion of Interstate 10, so it complicates the construction just a little bit. WSLP 103 consists of approximately 1 mile of levee, about 500 feet of flood wall, and 2 flood gates that cross Frenier Road and one that crosses Highway 51. WSLP 104 consists of about 2.5 miles of levee, about 500 feet of flood wall, and numerous utility crossings. Again, those are typically pipeline relocations. WSLP 105, it's a pretty long reach that consists of about 3 miles of levee, about 500 feet of flood wall, and multiple drainage structures. Again, there are multiple drainage structures at each of those multiple drainage structure sites. WSLP 106 consists of approximately 3/4 of a mile of levee, about 500 feet of flood wall. Again, though, complication of this project is that that flood wall will be constructed under the elevated portion of Interstate 10. WSLP 107 consists of approximately 1.5 miles of levee and is currently scheduled to be the first contract that we advertise early next year. WSLP 108 consists of a little over a mile of levee, again about 500 feet of flood wall, and several drainage structures. WSLP 109 consists of approximately a mile of levee, 500 feet of flood wall, and numerous utility crossings, again typically pipeline relocations. WSLP 110 is strictly an earthen job. It consists of about a mile of earthen levee. WSLP 111 consists of about a half a mile of levee, a ramp or a floodgate at Highway 61. We're still in the design phase to figure out exactly what it's going to be, and several utility crossings. WSLP 112 consists of about a mile of levee, a railroad gate, about 500 feet of flood wall, and numerous utility crossings. The railroad gate construction itself will require a shoe fly or a relocation or temporary relocation of the railroad so you can construct that gate. WSLP 113 consists of about a half mile of levee, about 500 feet of flood wall, and again, another railroad gate, which would require relocation of the railroad tracks. And finally, WSLP 114 will be the largest of the contracts that we award, that will consist of the construction of 4 pump stations and all the features associated with those pump stations. There will be 2 800 CFS pump stations and 2 2000 CFS pump stations. All the construction contracts are scheduled to be advertised starting early next year, with 3 of them scheduled to be advertised by March of 2021, 4 additional contracts scheduled to be advertised by June of 2021, and then the remaining 7 scheduled to be advertised by September of 2021. We're currently pushing to have all of the West Shore Lake Pontchartrain projects completed by early 2024. Thank you for your interest in these projects. Please stay safe and stay healthy.
Next is the East Baton Rouge Flood Management Project.
Good morning. My name is David Bradley. I'm a project manager for the East Baton Rouge Flood Risk Management Project. Thank you for joining us today. Today I'm going to give you an overview of the project as well as go through the proposed delivery and tentative schedule for accomplishing this work. First slide, please. The purpose of this project is to provide flood risk reduction for the residents of East Baton Rouge Parish. The project focuses on channel improvements to 5 streams within East Baton Rouge Parish. 3 of these streams are within the city of Baton Rouge. 2 streams are within the city of Central. Altogether, the project entails improvements to 49 miles of channels throughout the parish. The 5 streams and the extent of their improvements are listed here. The first 3 streams are within the city of Baton Rouge. Jones Creek and tributaries, 19 miles of proposed improvements. Ward Creek, 3.5 miles. Bayou Fountain, 4.5 miles. The 2 remaining streams are within the city of Central. We have Blackwater Bayou and its tributary, planned for 14 miles of improvements. Beaver Bayou, 8 miles of improvements. The proposed improvements include a combination of clearing and snagging, earthen enlargement, and concrete riprap. In total, the proposed work includes 39.5 miles of clearing and snagging, 5.5 miles of earthen enlargement, and 4 miles of concrete riprap. Next slide, please. Here's an overview map of the project showing the 5 streams we've discussed. The upper 2 streams are within the city of Central, Blackwater Bayou on the left, Beaver Bayou on the right. The lower 3 streams are within the city of Baton Rouge. In the center map, we have Jones Creek and its tributaries, and at the bottom, Ward Creek and Bayou Fountain. The 5 streams are color-coded to identify the type of improvement proposed in each stream. The green represents clearing and snagging. The yellow represents placement of concrete riprap, and the red represents earthen enlargement. Next slide, please. The next 2 slides will show the proposed delivery of the project. Currently, the plan is to break the work into 12 contracts, which we'll cover in this slide and the next. In the left column, each contract ID represents a single contract and the location of work. The column on the right provides the description of work for that contract. So we'll start off with Lower Jones Creek. We have clearing and snagging 3 miles. Ward Creek, clearing and snagging 3.5 miles. Bayou Fountain, clearing and snag 4.5 miles. Middle Jones Creek, this is the placement of the concrete riprap. This reach is shown in yellow on the overview map. Upper Jones Creek, clear and snag 4.5 miles. Weiner Creek, which is a tributary of Jones Creek, clear and snag 2 miles. Next slide, please. Lively Bayou, which is also a tributary of Jones Creek, we have clearing and snagging of 3.5 miles, and then the Lively Bayou tributary, clearing and snag 2.5 miles. Beaver Bayou in the city of Central, we plan to put out as one contract. It's clear and snag 6.5 miles and earth and enlargement 1.5 miles. And then Blackwater Bayou, also in the city of Central, we plan to break up into 3 contracts. So lower Blackwater Bayou, in the lower portion of its tributary, clear and snag 1 mile, earth and enlargement 4 miles. Upper Blackwater Bayou, clear and snag 6.5 miles. And then the upper Blackwater Bayou tributary, clear and snag 2.5 miles. Next slide. In the next 2 slides, we'll go over the tentative solicitation schedule for the 12 contracts. The contract IDs shown on the left are the same as in previous 2 slides. The tentative solicitation dates range from 2020 to 2023. For Lower Jones Creek, Ward Creek, and Bayou Fountain showed the first 3 lines. We have a tentative solicitation at the end of this year, 4th quarter 2020. Middle Jones Creek, which is the 4 miles of concrete riprap, targeting 1st quarter of 2022. Upper Jones Creek and Weiner Creek, which is tributary Jones Creek, 4th quarter 2023. Next slide, please. Then Lively Bayou and the Lively Bayou tributary. These are also tributaries of Jones Creek, targeting 4th quarter 2023. Beaver Bayou, 4th quarter 2021. Lower Blackwater Bayou and lower portion of its tributary, which includes clear and snag and enlargement, targeting 4th quarter 2021. And then Upper Blackwater Bayou and its tributary, 3rd quarter 2023. Next slide. So that concludes the presentation of the East Baton Rouge Flood Risk Management Project. I'd encourage you to please submit any questions you have on this project. We want to thank you all for joining us today and look forward to working with you in the future.
Next, we have the Mississippi River levee construction.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Barisco. I'm the Senior Project Manager in Programs and Projects Management Division. I lead the Mississippi River Levee Construction, also known as the MRL. Acronyms are a side effect of the job here. So just start with a couple quick things as an overview for the Mississippi River Levee Construction. It is the most successful civil works project in Corps history. There's approximately 350 miles of levee of the MRL in the New Orleans district. Most, if not all, of our work on the MRL goes to small business. So, I'd really like to thank all of you for making time today. It's very important. As the Colonel said in his opening remarks, we are seeing increased funding, and that it certainly goes for the MRL as well. We have a very successful history of working these projects with small business, and we are forecasting 7 awards in the next year to year and a half, which we'll cover in those slides here. So the first one I'd like to talk to you all is Point Pleasant Phase 2 seepage. It's going to be the installation of 42 passive relief wells. It's up on River Road, just south of Port Allen in the town of Plaquemine in Iberville Parish, Louisiana. In addition to the installation of relief wells, there will be some electric powered pumps that'll have to be constructed and maintained, some ditch excavation, and some guardrail installation for the project. Next slide, please. Next slide. I'm sorry, not the next slide. I apologize. Upper Fifth levee enlargement. This is also near the. Oh, sorry, the slide went backward. Upper Fifth is located in Concordia Parish, Louisiana. It's in the southern portion of the Mississippi River and tributaries, but it is in the northernmost portion of the New Orleans district. It's on the right descending bank, or colloquially, if you're from New Orleans, on the west bank of the Mississippi River. It is levee enlargement, so essentially for 3.5 miles, we'll be adding dirt to the levee, roughly 1 to 3 feet of dirt, approximately 500,000 to 600,000 cubic yards of dirt total. Next slide, please. These are some upcoming projects that we got through an emergency supplemental in 2019. There's 5 of them total. We are just now beginning design. We were delayed a little bit to High River. You've heard others discuss the High River impacts, and certainly that affects us more than most on the Mississippi River levee job. So these are under design. We do have some information for you today, not a ton on these, but I will tell you everything that I know right now, as well as the proposed fixes. We'll get into it a little bit more. But you can see we have Red River Landing, which is a spur levee up there near Old River Control Complex. That is going to be a slide repair. And then you can see Lower West Mississippi, Camp F, Angola, which is seepage and sand boil. New Roads Ferry Landing, which is a sand boil. And then we're going to be doing some armoring in the Morganza 4-bay. And that probably will be something like concrete slope pavement or articulated concrete blocks. Next slide, please. You can see from the map here where the locations are for the various projects that I just went through. But generally speaking, just south of Baton Rouge up to, like I said, the northernmost limit of the New Orleans district. We do have some at Angola. The Camp F is at Angola, and then other ones in New Roads, Louisiana. Next slide, please. All right, and so here's the delivery plan for these projects. Point Pleasant Phase 3, as I said, was 42 relief wells and electric pumps, some small ditch excavation, and installation of guardrail. Upper Fifth, which was up in Concordia Parish, 3.5 miles of levee enlargement. New Roads Ferry Sand Boil, right now we think it'll be a seepage berm, approximately 500 linear feet. At Morganza, it's approximately 2.5 miles of armoring, so that's a pretty large contract. Actually, again, we believe it's either going to be concrete slope pavement or articulated concrete blocks. Next slide. Red River Landing, that's about 100 linear feet of levee slide repair, so that'll be a little bit smaller job. But we'll see. It may grow. Once we get surveys, it may be a little bit bigger than 100 linear feet. And then you can see Lower West Sand Boil. Right now we're forecasting roughly a half mile of linear feet of sheet pile. So it'll be a pretty large job. And then Camp F, right now we think it's going to be 2,500 linear feet of seepage berm. But as I said, those are still the emergency supplemental 2019s are still under design. So that's not final. There will be more to come. All right, and then I'll just lay out the solicitation schedule. Right now, actually, Point Pleasant Phase 3 is out on the street. You can bid on it. It's the relief well project. It's in the range of about 5 to 10 million, I believe. Then you can see Upper Fifth, we're forecasting second quarter of 21. The New Roads Ferry Sand Boil, in fact, all the emergency supplementals are forecasted for the first quarter of 2021. So we do have all those coming up. New Roads, Morganza will both be first quarter 2021. Next slide, please. And then, as I said, the remainder, Red River, Lower West Sand Boil, and the Camp F Sand Boil, all first quarter 2021 scheduled solicitation. And with that, thank you. Thank you for your time. Again, just to reiterate, MRL does do the majority of its work via small business. We can't do it without you. So thank you. We appreciate it and looking forward to hearing from you.
Next, the Operations Division contract opportunities.
Next slide, please. Good morning and welcome to the New Orleans District Virtual Industry Day. My name is Mike Park. I'm the Chief of Operations for the New Orleans District. I'm going to start with an orientation to the district's operations infrastructure. Looking at this map, you can see that we have structures that span the South Louisiana from Lake Charles, the greater New Orleans area, upriver to the Old River Control Complex. There are some 2,800 miles of federal navigation channels in the district, 17 navigation structures, about 1,000 miles of Mississippi River and tributaries levees, and 4 major flood risk reduction facilities, including the old river control complex, low sill and auxiliary structures, the Morganza control structure, and the Bonnicary spillway. The structures in the district range in age from about 35 years old, which is no short span of time, to very nearly 100 years old. The 99-year-old Inner Harbor Navigation Canal lock in New Orleans. So these facilities require a great deal of maintenance. They're often in harsh environments, exposed to salt water and corrosive environments. So we do a lot of steel work. We do a lot of repair work on timber guide walls at the navigation structures. And so there are lots of opportunities. Plus, we've got personnel stationed at these facilities, and we have, in some cases, residential and office facilities that require some contractual services for their upkeep. Next slide. So I'm going to start out here with a summary of dredging. I mentioned that we have some 2,800 miles of federal channels in the New Orleans district. Not all of those require maintenance on a regular basis, but certain of them do require annual maintenance. This first slide is a summary of what remains to be contracted in fiscal year 20. Of course, we're drawing close to the end of fiscal year 20. And you can see that we still have contracts to let for Mississippi River, for the Calcasieu River, down to Chafalaya River and Bayou Chene, Buffin Black, that's in the Morgan City vicinity, the Homa Navigation Canal, Inland Channel, and then the mouth of the river in the vicinity of Venice, Louisiana. And what you'll see on this table are the types of dredges that we're going to be seeking under each of those contracts, the estimated bid opening dates, and the estimated schedules of the work. You can also note that in some cases we're going to be going out with contracts, opening bids for contracts with the schedules for the delivery of the dredge to be several months into the future. The next slide, please, is the list of projects for the fiscal year 21 that we have presently budgets for. There is always a potential, and often this arises, that additional contract opportunities can come up when we get funds through a work plan or a supplemental appropriation. So this is probably not the full suite of those things that may come up during the course of the year, but similar to the FY20 opportunities, we're going to have work in the Gulf Intracoastal Waterway below Bayou Sorrel Lock. That's in the alternate route of the Gulf Intracoastal Waterway between Port Allen and Morgan City, just below the lock where the channel coincides with the Atchafalaya River. Then we've got our typical requirements for cutter head dredges in the Mississippi River that when the river comes up in the spring, we're experiencing shoaling, we will have a need for cutter head dredges. Similarly, hopper dredges are needed in the Southwest Pass. That's down all the way at the mouth of the river, below Venice, in the last 20 miles or so of the river channel before it enters the Gulf of Mexico. Then we'll also have a contract for dredging in the New Orleans Harbor area, which will include work in the lock forebays for the Algiers Inner Harbor Navigation Canal and Harvey locks, and possibly other locations. And then We'll have an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantities contract that we use for the dredging in the vicinity of Morgan City and the Gulf Intercoastal Waterway and in the Atchafalaya River. And finally, Calcasieu River down in the vicinity of Lake Charles, Louisiana, and Southwest Louisiana. We'll have an inland dredging contract. That's the upper reach of the channel from what we dub miles 17 to 36. And then additional work in the Atchafalaya River, Bayou Cheyenne, Buff and Black project, and the bar channel of the Atchafalaya River below Morgan City. Next slide. As I mentioned, we have quite a number of physical structures, and we have a pretty robust need for maintenance of those structures, much of which we do with our own in-house plant and personnel resources. But when we undertake a major repair, there are always numerous opportunities for contracts for equipment rentals, services, and the like. And an example of that is we are very near to beginning a project at the Inner Harbor Navigation Canal Lock. We're going to be renting a heavy lift floating crane to support those operations. We'll be renting man lifts, forklifts, skid steers, pumps and generators. We're going to be acquiring materials such as pilings, pipe stands, flowable filled grout and urethane resin, and services to inject grout or urethane resin, conduct concrete repair, concrete core drilling, and radar, ground penetrating radar services. It's very common for us to contract for concrete placement services for Mississippi River levee slope paving. We anticipate going out with some of that in this fourth quarter of this fiscal year. We anticipate acquisition of a rock supply, shore up bank lines at our Schooner Bayou control structure. This is a very remote facility in Southwest Louisiana and Vermilion Parish. We would be doing the rock placement with our own sources, but we will be acquiring rock for that work. The New Orleans district, I didn't mention, owns a trailing suction hopper dredge. It's a large ship that does maintenance dredging of the lower Mississippi River and other channels. We're going to be going out very soon with a solicitation for dry docking and shipyard services to do major steel repairs that we anticipate that work beginning very early first quarter of FY21. And then our floating derrick Brownlee, we're also anticipating a dry docking and repairs in the first quarter of FY21. Just potential opportunities that arise pending our needs and the availability of funding. We often contract for welding services, steel fabrication, machine shop services, material supplies, timber and composite materials, marine construction to replace existing guide walls or dolphins at our navigation facilities, and already mentioned stone supply and placement. But that can come up if something, a particularly compelling need arises, or if the funding is allocated through work plan allocations. Next slide, please. Okay, I mentioned facilities. We've got facilities all across South Louisiana. Those facilities require service contracts. Um, and just some examples, we acquire janitorial services and some of the things that are upcoming. We've got a janitorial services contract coming up for the Bonnie Carey Spillway. That's going to be a base in 4 option years. Now that'll be up for renewal in 2025. Trash removal, multiple project locations. That's also a base in 4 option years. That's coming up for removal in June of 2023. Bayou Buff Lock, similar trash removal, 23. Then we've got grounds maintenance for multiple project locations. That's also usually a base in 4 option years. We've got awards pending for Port Allen Lock in the vicinity of Baton Rouge, Calcasieu Lock in the Lake Charles area, IHNC, Harvey, and Algiers locks. Those will be up for renewal in 24. And then we also have a crane maintenance contract for the IHNC lock, 2 base years and 1 option year. And then we often are acquiring services, electrical system services, control systems, and security system supply and services. Next slide. Supply contracts can include acquisition of limestone that we use to surface roads or levee crowns. We often acquire American 610 limestone, timber needles, replace worn out timbers that we have at the Bonnie Carey Spillway. We've got a contract upcoming for replacement of gearboxes for Berwick Lock, which is in the Morgan City vicinity. We're acquiring restoration parts for a crane at the Old River Low Sill control structure. And then we've got some upcoming and ongoing construction contracts that are mentioned here. The replacement of fuel tanks at the Point Coupee pumping station in Point Coupee Parish, a concrete slab and metal shed for our Bayou Buff Lock in the Morgan City area, painting gate bays at the Bonnie Carey Spillway, some guardrail replacements at the Old River Lock. So please be attentive to the opportunities that are posted on SAM. And thank you very much for your participation today and your interest in doing business with the Army Corps of Engineers.
Next, child care services.
Hi, I'm Margaret Main. I'm Chief with the Project's East Branch of the Contracting Division, and I will be discussing our child care services requirement that's coming up here shortly. Next slide. We have a child care center on our campus in the New Orleans district that's on Leak Avenue. Currently, it is closed, during the pandemic, but we anticipate it reopening approximately in January. The Castle Kids Development Center is a non-personal services contract that is government owned and contractor operated. So we provide the facilities, we provide the maintenance, but we need someone to run it for us. This services our active duty military, our Army civilians, and our private sector clients. The contractor will be providing all of the personnel, the supplies, the tools, the materials, and then providing the training and non-personal services to operate the Castle Kids for us. The contractor must obtain and sustain the Louisiana state licensing, also NACI accreditation and DoD certification. This is a employer-based daycare. It is for infants through 5-year-olds. There will be no school-age services. The contractor must adhere to our Army Regulation 608-10 and its accompanying regulation, the MCOM 608-10 as well. We anticipate the solicitation should be released either this week, the end of July, or the beginning of August. Again, we are looking for performance to begin approximately in January, but as you know, a lot of these schools are impacted by our current situation with the pandemic, and that is currently not set in stone. Thank you, and if you have any questions about them, please submit them to Karen or Bianca. Thanks.
Other required MVN services.
Good morning, and thank you very much for attending this morning's inaugural virtual industry day. My name is Chris Nucio. I am the Section Chief and Contracting Officer for Contracting Division Projects West Branch. Today I'll be discussing some great opportunities we have, particularly for small business, for services within the footprint of the New Orleans District Complex. All these services I'm about to present to you will be for one base year and 4 optional yearly periods. Now, for those of you small business contractors that are interested in federal contracting, but aren't really sure what base and option years and all this is, I'm going to take a moment to quickly explain that to you. So when awarded a contract, we typically set up service contracts to be one base year, with the government having the option to exercise an additional year after each term. So if you're a contractor and you perform satisfactorily, then we'll examine that, and at the end of that base year, we will unilaterally issue a modification to exercise the next year. And it'll continue on. The goal of the government is to actually execute and have the contractor work all 5 years of the requirement. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, we're still on that slide. The slide that you're seeing right now is for janitorial services. Mark your calendar for the second quarter of 2021, when we'll be advertising for janitorial services for the New Orleans District Complex. The services includes all the buildings within the footprint of the New Orleans District Headquarters, which includes the main building, which houses approximately 1,000 personnel. As you can see on your screen, there's also 7 other smaller buildings within the footprint. However, it currently includes COVID-19 disinfecting language, the contract that's currently in place. The disinfecting is in accordance with CDC guidelines. Once we get closer to the advertisement period, we're going to re-examine the contract requirements as well as where we are in the COVID-19 pandemic and whether we feel it's necessary to continue on with that specific requirement of the disinfecting. Next slide, please. The next requirement we have coming up will potentially be advertised in the first quarter of 2021. It will be for mail processing services for the same buildings as discussed in the previous janitorial requirement, excluding, of course, the security guard booths at each entrance. The contractor awarded this contract will be provided a freestanding building with all of the required items to handle and sort mail in accordance with the various regulations. Now, if this is a requirement that your firm is interested in, I would highly recommend that you research the various governing regulations from the Department of the Army, Department of Defense, and the Military Postal Service prior to the anticipated advertisement date. That way you're fully aware of what's going to be required, and you can craft your potential bid accordingly. Just want to reemphasize that the ability to perform the work in accordance with these various important regulations is going to be paramount. Next slide, please. Okay, late in the fourth quarter of this year, we'll be advertising for cafeteria services. The cafeteria is located on the second floor of the main building, next to a freight elevator, which will actually provide easy access for food deliveries. The current setup that we have with the incumbent contractor includes a hot food line for breakfast, a hot food line, a deli line, as well as a salad bar for lunch. However, depending on the long-term impacts of COVID-19, these requirements may be changed prior to the advertisement to meet the needs of the district. This contract is actually unique because it is a no-cost contract. I'm going to dive a little bit into what a no-cost contract is. Essentially, the government will provide you all the equipment for your own use, and the government, in return for that, you will be able to keep most of the gross profit, except for 1% on a monthly basis, which the government will then take back and put in a coffer to either replace equipment as necessary, repairs, etc. At the end of the term of the contract, whatever's remaining in that coffer goes to the Department of the Treasury. So that's essentially how a no-cost contract works. The advertisement will be a low price, technically acceptable requirement. Ms. Main discussed this earlier when she spoke regarding the various contracting mechanisms. To go in a little bit of a deeper dive here, essentially what that is we will, in the solicitation, we will post various criterion and give you essentially some criterion on how to respond to it and how to draft up your response. Source section evaluation board will then evaluate all the technical criterion and if you met the minimum requirements of the solicitation. If you have, then the lowest price is then utilized and a contract is then awarded to the lowest price. Hence the name lowest price, technically acceptable. Prior to the prior to the new contractor taking over the equipment from the incumbent contractor, the government does take the responsibility to thoroughly disinfect and clean the equipment, making sure that everything in the cafeteria is in full operational order, ready to get handed off to the new onboarding contractor. Next slide, please. Late in the fourth quarter of this year, we anticipate advertising for the Employment Assistance Services. Now, our motto here, as you can see at the bottom of each slide, states building strong and taking care of people. So this contract is of particular importance to the personnel as well as the leadership here at the New Orleans District. Going through the slide, it's to provide confidential assessment, counseling, and referral services, supervisory training, and mental health education to all New Orleans District employees. It also includes professional counseling on alcohol and drug dependency, trauma, gambling, depression, grief, codependency, stress management, workplace violence, personal and workplace relationships, child and spousal abuse, and crisis intervention, and any other matters in which come through that spectrum. Now, due to COVID-19, we had to modify the current contract to work for us, meaning going from more of an interpersonal, face-to-face option for employees to a virtual option. So the current mechanism we have works virtually in correlation with COVID-19. However, we do plan on eventually going back to the more interpersonal, and we do always have, the employer always has the mechanism to meet one-on-one as long as social distance guidelines are met. So that's really the end of my presentation. If you have any questions regarding any of the upcoming services I've presented, please reach out to Ms. Karen Hargrave or Ms. Bianca Gatson, whose point of contact information was provided at the beginning of the Virtual Industry Day and also is available under this Industry Day under beta.sam. Thank you very much.
Next, the Office of Small Business Programs.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'd like to thank the team that has been before me to show the opportunities of the district This is a great opportunity to showcase what opportunities are out there for large and small business, but I want to direct your attention to the small business side. I am Dave Willis, the Director or Deputy of Small Business Program for the New Orleans District, and I want to highlight a couple of things to maybe make your case as a small business. If you've never done business with it before, to make it easier for you. And if you've done business with it before, congratulations, first of all. I hear majority of folks saying that first contract is the hardest, and after that it gets easier. That's what I've been told anyway, but it works for everybody. Next slide, if you would please, ma'am. All right, for the small business in the Department of Army, it is big business. And the reason I say that, next slide please, if you'll take a notice, 29%, this is last year, 2019, 29.1% of the entire Department of Army's budget, what they spent on, went to small business in one form or fashion. And what I mean by small business, you have the regular small business, and this is determined by the size standard of the North American Industry Classification Standard Codes, or NICS codes. And underneath that, you also have areas that we, as district and Department of Army, goals that we try to achieve. And you can see those other areas down there. Next slide, please. Okay. As I've stated before, the Army Corps of Engineers, New Orleans District is very, very small business friendly. As you've heard some of the previous presentations, yes, we are there to support the industry that it's hurting right now. The national economy is hurting. So this is our way to reach out and give back in a sense. Next slide, please. All right, just showcase some of the goals with the New Orleans District. This is a little eye chart, I agree, but it got some good information on it, and I want to share with you. This is available out on the internet under the Department of Army, under our website as well. So it is not secretive or anything like that. It is there to educate more than anything else. In 2019, we had 1,449 actions requirements we fulfilled, a total value of $676 million. And out of that, we spent $372 million in the small business arena, which gave us a percentage of about 55% right there, right over 55%. But our goal was 44.92%, so we did well in this year. The one area that we do lack in, or in that year our goals fell short in, is under the small disadvantaged veteran-owned side of the house, which if you're out there as a small disadvantaged business, please, after this presentation at some point, please reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you, in addition to the other contact information. Next slide, please. In a way of transparency, in 2020, this is where we are currently at. This was data we pulled out of our system as of the 24th at about 5 o'clock in the morning, right over 5 o'clock there. Currently, at that point in time, we spent $418 million. Out of that, 175 had went to small business. So we're at about 42 percentage point, and our goal is 44 roughly. So we're still under the need for that area. And you can see the other areas that we're still struggling to bring along. But I think with your help out there and not being afraid to venture out and go after some of the great opportunities you've seen displayed today, please, the world is yours out there. The word I can share with you is opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. Next slide, please. All right, everybody asks, how do you find the New Orleans small business? This is the front page of our website there, and you pull up the website that's down there, highlighted underneath there, and I've highlighted doing business with us. The little tab below that is the small business side of the house. You'll have wealth of information. My contact information is underneath there, as well as a lot of great information on how to do business with the Corps as well as the Department of Defense. Next slide, please. Okay. Contracting opportunity. This is one of the most asked questions I receive over the phone. How can I find opportunities with the district, the New Orleans district? Well, off the front page there, in the next slide you'll see it, is our website. This is where the acquisition forecast is posted, as well as any opportunities the district does. You'll see it on Beta SAMS. Now, this was formerly known as FBO, and When you change to a new website, there's a few challenges at times, and I've heard some less than positive feedback on it. But if you have issues with it, there's always a help desk. There's give them a call and say, hey, I'm having trouble with this. As well as Beta Sam's, which is owned by the General Service Administration, has available to you a learning center. I do encourage you to go and learn and figure it out, or as I like to say, break it to fix it to make it work for you. And that's a way of learning. That is one of the learning styles that I've come to acquire. And I am a hands-on type person. betasams.gov is the website there. So it is there for a lot of our postings of opportunities that are available to you, whether you're large or small. And I encourage our small businesses to go after those, what we call unrestricted requirements, and show everybody what you really can do for the core of New Orleans. Next slide, please. Like I said, this is the contracting side of the house there. This is underneath, right on our front page there. Thanks to our great PAO folks, we've put this out there for you. There's the website down there. So, yeah. Hey, so my PAO folks, this is your plug for the day. All right, next slide, please. All right. Let's talk about a couple things. Like I said, this is the website. This is Beta Sam's. This is that one owned by the GSA and brought it over from Federal Business Opportunity. It does have a lot of capabilities in there. Do note the website on there. Don't be afraid of it. This is your key to finding those opportunities out there. The Learning Center is there. If you can't find it, find at the bottom of it, and I didn't put a slide in there because, time restraints and things like that, but it has contact us. Please reach out to them. Get the knowledge you need to succeed, and don't be afraid of a little website, whatever you do. Next slide, please. Like I said, it is hosted by the General Services Administration. It transitioned over from Federal Business Opportunities, and it's a listing. This is where we place our listings, our opportunities for you. And like I say, training is available to you on that. So that is a great asset that any person that's trying to go for federal contracting, have never ventured out, you got to start someplace, and you got to, as they say, crawl before you can run. Next slide, please. All right, SAMS. This is where, as a contractor, you must register with the federal government to do business. If you're not here, you cannot be awarded a contract. You must be listed here, and it must be maintained. Easy access to it, www.sams, not Beta Sams. You go to another website. At some point, this will all be tied together. But until that point, here we are with www.sams, which is the System for Award Management.gov. All righty, you got plenty of educational opportunities there to learn about this great system, but you got to start with creating your account. And I've highlighted that down the lower left-hand corner with the big arrow as your way of starting out. This is where you self-certify your capabilities and which one of those NICS codes you can legally perform business under. Next slide, please. Like I say, it's commonly referred as SAM, System for Award Management. This is where you must register to do business with the federal government. Free online registration. One warning. Annual recertification required. Every 12 months you must recertify. You get warnings. You get about a 6 month, then you get about 3 months, then you get a 1 month, and you get nothing. They just cut you off, basically. So, word to the wise. You get that first warning. Please go and renew your act and stay active so you can be informed of what's going on. Not with just the New Orleans district, but all the federal government out there looked at this and follows this. Are you eligible for an award? Next slide, please. Okay. This is another way to do business with the federal government. Maybe you can't bond for a full project or a full amount, but you're looking for opportunities still. There's a thing with the Small Business Administration called subnet. Subnetting is basically where subcontracting opportunities exist. And this is just a snapshot of the website. Inside there, you got the web link right there. And you do it, but roll over which state you want to go to. I've got the Louisiana highlighted down there because that's where we are. I love it. I love my state. So grow in there and see what opportunities you can be a part of. Now, the good thing about it is large businesses put their requirements in there as well. They're looking to partner with as well. So it is a great networking avenue for you to learn and partner with somebody or a large business to find those firms in this area here. Next slide, please. Some of the pitfalls of federal contracting. As you look at the right there, the gentleman's blindly walking around there, and he's going to, unfortunately, fall in the trap there. So be careful that you don't fall into those traps. Some of the things I want to highlight to you to kind of make you aware. First of all, SAMs, registration. No registration equals no contract at all. So whatever you do, you got to be there ready to go. The next one that I hear from contracting professionals here at the district as well as other places, the contractor did not understand what they were getting into. Well, I encourage you to read the entire solicitation before you venture out there. Knowing what the government wants is number one. Now, if there's questions, there's usually a contract specialist attached to it or a point of contact that can get those questions. Use that email link down there to address your concerns, your questions. Who knows? You may have a better way of doing this project. Is it okay to use what your idea is? Interface with you is very important for the success of a project. You keep up with the latest technology out there. Help us stay current with that technology. We learn from you as well as you learn from us. So it's a two-way street. Plans and specifications. This is where understanding those fine details, the finer points of it. What is actually going? You want it 20 feet long or you want it 2 feet long? Is the decimal point off? These are where you need to look and make sure, because you build your proposal upon those numbers, feet, inches, yards, miles, etc. Read it until you fully understand. Now, personally, I have a methodology for reading any of the solicitation plans and specs. My proposal is I read it, put it down, go away, have an adult beverage, come back, pick it up, read it again, go away and have another adult beverage. By the time the third beverage comes around, it's maybe I shouldn't look at this anymore. I don't think this project's for me. So it's just Dave's way of actually reading and understanding what the government is looking for in a requirement. That's only a recommendation. This is how Dave does it. Next slide, please. Pitfalls. Additionally, pricing and fairness, reasonableness. This is one of the areas. The government does not have a bottomless checkbook. And you got to remember, we are spending your tax dollars in it. Now, you have to be mindful that anything you price it fair and reasonable to what a normal person would pay for it. I know everybody's got different ideas of what fair and reasonable is, but you got to remember, it is what the government estimates it is, and this is what we compare it against, as if you're in an awardable range or not. When you get an award, congratulations, first of all, when you get that contract award, whether you're first one or 50th, it doesn't matter. Make sure everything you put in there, read it again. You can have 3 beverages if you want to, but read it again. Make sure everything is in there before you sign on the dotted line and send it back either to a specialist or a contracting officer. This is where everybody understands and everybody's on the same page together. One thing that you need to know generally in construction arena is liquidated damages. This is applied if one of the terms or conditions are not met. The government can assess you damages, liquidated damages. It's normally based on a daily rate, and it's for missing a schedule or delivery or a milestone. If that occurs, remember, you have a representative called a contracting officer's representative, which you can work with. It is the contracting officer's representative in the field, their eyes and ears, to make sure the project is done and according with the plans and specs or what the government's asking for. Remember, the contracting officer is the only individual that can modify a contract. Next slide, please. Like I said, the contracting officer representative, they represent the contracting officer themselves. They oversee the work. They actually pay you. They sign off on your work and sign all your paperwork. You send the billing into them. They send the billing to Millington, Tennessee, where, as you see down there, the payment center is at. It's not made out of the New Orleans district office here anywhere at all, the pay center, and it's all done electronically. Billing, you look for in the contract. Make sure you understand how you get paid in the contract. I've received many calls. How do I get paid? Okay, let's look at your contract, see what it says. Those are one of the things before you sign that you understand. Hey, this is what the government wants. This is how the government proceeds. Next slide, please. Communication. Oh, the number one pitfall. There's nothing worse than receiving a notification that you have been terminated in one form or fashion, any contractor. Usually you get warnings about that, but reach out. You got a question. Communications. Number one pitfall, number one resource to fix things. Issues come up every time. COVID is one example of it. Reach out to that contracting officer representative. The other resources you got is a contracting officer and specialist. And I'd like to reverse those as way that you, as a contractor or awardee of a contract, should do. That first one should be that contracting officer representative. You have one assigned. You usually get a letter or notification. This is the person you do business with. Next is your specialist. They are your link in between. They're very diverse, very knowledgeable, and we have a fine, outstanding staff here. Very knowledgeable, ready to go, well trained. And finally, the contracting officer, which we know is the only one that can make a legal change to a contract, making it binding. And of course, another resource, you're speaking to one of them right here. Through the Corps of Engineers, throughout the whole enterprise across, there's only 48 specialists like myself. Plus there's a staff beyond that at headquarters. But we are there to assist you as well in understanding. So don't be afraid to reach out to us as well. We are your advocate. We are also your ally in this. But we also have an obligation to respect the government side. All right. Moving on here. Thank you, Renee. The New Orleans office, some helpful websites for you. Of course, it's ours down here, the New Orleans district office, doing business with the Corps itself. Beta Sam's, I think we've beat this one and we've put it out there enough. It is your single link. And of course, it was FBO. Everybody loved FBO because everybody knew how to work it and make it happen and make it work for those. My understanding is that a lot of contractors loved it in the sense that they could highlight a requirement and any change to it would happen or notify them. So we're looking for Beta Sams to come along and add that feature in there to make it easier for a contractor to follow. The SBA, Small Business Administration, they have a wealth of information when it comes to small business at all. Any side, they have many programs. There's many programs that maybe you apply for, maybe you can be a part of, but you got to do the homework as well. Okay. And another resource that's buried down there is the Louisiana Procurement Technical Assistance Center, or PTAC for short. And basically, this is an agency that has a partnership with the state of Louisiana and Defense Logistics Agency. They teach you as a new person, giving you help, to how to do federal contracting, introduce you to it, teach you the language basically of contracting. Excellent. Please, if you have questions of anything I've presented today, these are your point of contact. Please reach out to them. You have emails down there. You have phone numbers. I'm sure they prefer the email side of it. I want to say thank you for listening to me first of all and everything I presented to you. Here is my contact information as well for down the road. But for the result of this industry day, please reach out to the previous individuals. Again, thank you for your time and investment in the Corps of Engineers.
Next, we will have closing remarks by Colonel Stephen Murphy.
So I want to say thank you for everyone joining us this morning. I hope you found this valuable. A lot of work went into compiling and presenting this information. And really our intent is to make for great projects. And just like I said at the beginning and what you heard throughout is great projects require great relationships. And great relationships require a lot of communication. You just heard Dave say that one of the biggest challenges we have in contracts is communication, and it goes both ways. So you have the point of contact information. please send us your questions. You see just a massive program, a lot of opportunities out there. It personally excites me as commander because all these opportunities represents betterments for our communities, for the state of Louisiana, and for the nation in a lot of ways. So please provide us feedback, provide us your questions. If there is something that would have been better today, something you would have liked to see or heard more of, please send that feedback in to one of the emails listed on the screen, because we do this, again, to improve that partnership. So thank you so much for participating today. We look forward to hopefully partnering with many of you, and God bless, stay safe, and stay healthy.
Thank you for attending today.